This podcast features immature people talking about very mature content and is intended only for adult audiences. Hello everyone and welcome to The Pen is Mightier. It's the world's greatest and possibly only audio, fanfiction, and erotica competition. I'm your host, Paul JP, and today you're going to be listening to a wishful episode of TPIM. The theme of this episode is Wish. And for now, I have no greater wish than to welcome my three guests who will be joining me in this randy reception. And among their myriad other talents, today is a real podcast party. Our first guest, a veteran of the Coctagon, and there's no way I was going to not have him on this episode. You know him from the excellent podcast, Caverns Comedians, and of course, thematically appropriate, Break a Wish. It's Maddox Campbell.
Hey, everybody. I like wishes. I like messing them up.
I'm excited to have you on the show again, Maddox. How are you today?
I'm very excited to be here. Yeah. My story is even inspired by a single episode of my podcast where I watched a movie about a wish and then decided to make it horny and weird.
I'm gonna put this out there right now into the world. I want to manifest this. I hope it's Kazam.
Oh no!
Sorry to disappoint. I'm unwilling to make that as horny, considering how many children are involved.
Fair enough. Yeah, but also I honestly was looking for Kazam fan fiction to tie into this episode. I couldn't find any.
Did you call up Corey Birch? He might.
You know what? I'll shoot him a message on this recording, and I'll just double check, and then we'll maybe an addendum next week of like, here's some Kazam fan fiction.
I mean, if you give me 45 minutes.
Perfect. Our next guest, you've heard them speaking just now. It's a multi-hyphenate artist, the co-creator and co-writer of the horror podcast Parkdale Haunt, winner of Outstanding Fiction Series at the Canadian Podcast Awards. It's Alex Nursall.
Hello.
Hello, Alex. It's your first time on the show. I'm so excited to have you here.
Thanks. I wish to be here, and now I am. But the funny thing for me is this is my first time on the show. It's my first time writing fan fiction, and it's my first time writing erotica. So let's just see. And I write a horror podcast, so let's just see where this goes.
Oh my gosh, I cannot wait. But we do have to introduce our final guest. It is another first-time entrant into the fray. He is number one in podcast fun, the host of several shows on the Podcavern network. It's Tuong La.
Hello, I'm here. I also wish to be here, and it happened. It finally happened, and God, I'm just excited to talk sexy with all of you. We do that here, right? Does everyone have their clothes off here? Because I do. I know this is an audio format, but I just wanted to get into the groove with this whole thing.
My clothes are off in my heart.
It's very hard to hold the computer with so much baby oil on my hand.
Oh my gosh. If this first few minutes is anything to go by, this is going to be a dynamite episode. I'm so thrilled. How it's going to work, what is going to happen. Today, these three performers are going to go head to head, presenting readings of erotica in hopes of winning the approval of the others. And along the way, we'll play, of course, a couple of short bonus games for extra credit at the end of the episode, deciding collectively who has done enough to be named the winner. This week, the theme is Wish. So how about a little thematic icebreaker for all of us, just sort of to get to know each other a little bit better. I know Maddox has probably thought about this before, Break a Wish being the podcast that it is. What is like a totally selfish wish that each of you would have? For example, for me, one thing, like even when I was a little kid, and especially now, my greatest wish probably would be a rock star, I think. I would love to just be immediately perfect at any instrument I pick up. Exactly like Flavor Flav.
Oh, okay.
Okay, all right, okay.
I've probably overthought about this. Like I have too many possible options in my mind, but I find the best way to get around Like, oh, what wish do I want? I don't want to wish more wishes. It's to wish for a superpower. So I'd wish for sort of like teleportation powers, probably. Or
Oh
the
yeah.
ability to convert energy into matter. So I could like either turn energy into anything or anything into energy and shoot out fireballs and lightning.
Wow.
One of those two.
That's completely different powers.
Well, if I could have both, I would. But
Yeah, I feel like I went somewhere like kind of practical, like my
Okay.
like I
I
was
mean, sorry. Yeah, go
yeah,
ahead.
and then you mentioned superpowers, and I'm like, if I could like shapeshift, and like a big part of that is that I used to have like really fun colored hair, and then it just got very expensive to keep it up, so now I have boring hair, and if I could just like do whatever I want to my appearance whenever I felt like it would be really, really fun. And I would just be like, yeah, I look like an anime character at all times. What do you want? You want to fight about it? I didn't wish for the fireball powers, but
I just wish for the anime look, not the,
I
not
was
the
Yeah,
anime abilities.
I just want the pink hair. It's fine.
I was just going to say I wanted to wish to become an anime character. Like the anime protagonist. They always get the glory, they always get the cool superpowers, and they always have the cool hair. That's what I
Yes.
want. Yes.
Is there any anime protagonist specifically that
Oh, I have to be like a Goku or something, you know? Like cuz that he gets to change his hair like 4 or 5 different ways now. It's amazing.
depending on how strong he is, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but if you spend that much time charging up, do you really get much done in the day? Like if everything requires a build up?
It looks cool when I charge up. I mean, there's a lot of screaming involved, but
Yeah.
I assume that's going to happen a lot in today's episode too. So it's fine.
And to be fair on Dragon Ball, those days lasted for fucking ever.
It's true.
There's so much time to get things done. Great. Now I feel like I know everybody a little bit better. I think it's time to get this competition on the roll. So it's time for our first story. That's going to be brought to us today by Tuong La. So, Tuong,
Yeah.
what kind of experience, if any, would you say you have in the arena of erotica or even fan fiction more broadly?
Very little. My sister used to write Final Fantasy fan fiction, but I don't think it was
Okay.
erotica. But I never read her
Well,
stuff, so I just knew that she was like somewhat popular with that back in the day, and I'm like, fan fiction? What? I didn't know people did that. But I never dipped my toes into any of it. So yeah, I have very little to no experience with the whole thing.
okay. And for your story today, did you go looking for something? Did you write one?
Yeah, I went looking for something in an incognito window because I was using my work laptop during work hours because I'm like, oh shit, I gotta get a story for today's episode, but I also don't want to use my personal computer all the way downstairs. So hopefully IT doesn't look at what I looked for. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Well, I cannot wait to hear it. Is there anything you want to say by way of introducing the story?
Yeah, I
Or
mean, I was thinking like Wish, and then I thought of like when we did a podcast with Maddox with Break a Wish, and I'm like, what did we talk about there? And I remembered we talk about Dragon Ball, and then it's just so fitting we talked about Dragon Ball at the top of the show. So it is a Dragon Ball Z fan fiction erotica today. And the thing that I found was that a lot of people like to write many of pages of Dragon Ball Z fan fiction erotica, and I had to edit this down because it was 20 pages, and I was like, this is the shortest one I could find, and that's
wow.
insane. And then yeah, I had to read this like, you know, at least 5 times. And you know, of course I got horny as I did it, but like at some point I'm just like,
Naturally.
I'm just gonna start cutting paragraphs because I think you'll get the gist of what this is once I get going with it.
Yeah, as long as it flows okay.
We'll see. Yeah.
I really hope
Yeah.
I really hope the person who wrote it is listening, and they're like, "Did I need a reader? Did I need an editor?"
Yeah.
Yeah. So it is what, yeah, went from 20 pages to now just 2 and a bit. And I think it's still good. It's still good. Yeah.
10%.
It 10%, but you know, there's a lot of foreplay at the beginning. So like maybe I cut a lot of that stuff out and went straight for the action.
Well, if there's one thing I've learned exploring erotica on the internet for so many years, it's that foreplay is not important.
You don't need it.
No, you just need to spit.
Yeah, basically.
I'm so sorry.
Now I feel like there's a bunch of spitting in Alex's.
Yeah, I feel like I'm getting a sense of what story is to come.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. Well, we collectively turn the floor over to you, Tuong.
Okay, let's set this up a little bit. For those of you who don't know, Dragon Ball Z is a very popular anime. There's like, superpowered beings that fly and shoot fireballs out of their hands and things like that. But we're not focusing on those characters today. We're focusing on a very popular lady with blue hair named Bulma and a pig who is a very perverted pig named Oolong, which in the original series, he wished for her underwear from the magical dragon. So if you collect all 7 Dragon Balls, you can wish for whatever you want, and he wished for her underwear. And that's canon, but today, yeah, that's a real thing that happened. But today he wished for something different, and we're going to explore that a little bit. So like I said, I had to cut a lot of stuff beforehand. So long story short, there was another dragon wish that was about to happen by the baddies, and our friend Oolong the pig jumped in and said, I wish to have sex with Bulma all night to save the world. So he was doing it for heroic purposes.
Sure.
Yeah. So like we cut,
He could have wished for literally anything.
He could have wished for anything. He could have wished for the bad guys to go away, but instead he wished for sex with this, very sexy anime character all night long. So we flash forward 18 pages of foreplay.
Oh my God.
A lot of foreplay happening. Lots of like, Oolong, I never thought of it. By the way, it's canon that she also hates this pig. So she was, she does not like him. She thinks he's like the worst. But I wrote down a few like key lines that I liked in the foreplay stuff. Like she giggled as she eyed the little pickle, which was not much bigger than 3 inches, she reckoned. And he was also like really mad because at one point he said, like, my dick, it's small. She thinks it's small. I'll show her. And he transformed. His powers as a pig is to transform into anything. He can do that. So he transformed his body and his cock to 8 inches. So we're gonna start from that place.
All
here.
right.
Yeah. All right. Here we go. So after the cock transformation, this is what it reads. 8 inches of rock-hard flesh throbbed with pre-cum, the thick veins of his cock sending all of his blood towards his dick. Now, as I read this, Paul was asking if this was a medium to a very graphic fanfic erotica, and from that one sentence, I think it's pretty good. So,
well, yeah. So I before each episode, I do ask everybody, would you characterize your story as especially graphic so that I can kind of arrange the running order in such a way that it flows sort of well. But today, everybody said, medium, maybe a bit more than medium.
Yeah, I think maybe a bit more.
I can't believe the first line in the story was 8 inches of like cock meat or whatever.
And pre-cum, yeah. So as Oolong walked toward her, she cowered backwards. Wait, do we do voices in this, show? I don't know. I'm gonna try a little bit.
Read it however you like, my friend.
Was he seriously going to fuck her like this? She knew she'd complain about his length, but there was no way she could handle this. Her demands for him to stay back fell to deaf ears when the boar grabbed her ankles and pulled her towards the edge of the bed. Taking his place between her parted thighs, Oolong took one hand off her feet to angle himself in line with Bulma's snatch.
Oh boy.
Are you ready, Bulma? He jeered with a grin. Are you ready too? He surged his hips and slipped into her pussy. Take my monster cock! Kya! She sobbed as his girth spread her walls apart like never before. Her back arched in response to the pain, her teeth clenched together, her eyes almost bugging out of their sockets. Her inner channel was stretched to the point she felt afraid she might tear. She was even more aroused than she thought. Even with his thick girth, he slipped into her with hardly any stalls. His earlier ejaculation helped slicken his passage. So I should say, between the foreplay, he ejaculated like many times. He hasn't had sex as a pig very often. So this was his way of like showing his dominance here by transforming his cock. His cock surged through her. His cock surged through her until it forcefully bumped against the entryway to her womb, his balls resting against her engorged labia. "Oh, Kami," she sobbed, so big. And Kami in this universe is God, so she's saying, "Oh God."
Okay.
Yeah, just clarification for all of you non-Dragon Ball Z nerds. Oh yes, to have that commanding bitch whimper beneath him was what sex with Bulma was supposed to be like. She felt even better than before. Now that he was thicker, she felt even tighter around him, and because he reached deeper, the sensations were drawn out much longer than before. If not for his previous 2 orgasms, he had no doubt he would have already been forced to forfeit. He deserved this. Oolong reckoned after all Bulma had put him through, all the degrading comments she made about him, treating him like a slave, and even giving him that torturous pill that gave her the power to set off his diarrhea on command. It all Yeah, I don't remember that part. It all coerced him to up the pace even more. "Let's make those titties dance." Bulma whined beneath the bore as she was forced to endure his thrusts. His technique, if you would even call it that, was still lousy, without rhythm and far too impulsive. But his ampleness now more than made up for it. With his girth, he spread her more than the men who came before. With each thrust, the edges of his prick grinded against her sensitive walls, spraying her full with his pre-cum. "Oh, Kami, oh, Kami, oh, Kami," she hiccuped, her cheeks flushed, her body trashing, her glistening tits rocking wildly, and her fingers clawing into anything it could find. Eventually, her hands found his wrists at her hips and seized them, squeezing tightly. The bed squeaked beneath her to signify how hard she was getting fucked. If he kept this up, it wouldn't take her too long for her to come. Not used to the pleasures of bedding a woman, Oolong's body would occasionally spasm uncontrollably, his hips surging forward until he mashed against her groin, his cock coursing through her depths until painfully pressing against her cervix. Her back would arch in pain, tits rising. "Be more careful," she ordered before he hastily apologized and continued the splashing of his hips. Considering his, I don't know. Do people describe it like that? Considering his gawkiness, he had no right to feel as good as he did. She was so wet that his dick made a squelching sound that each time he dove in, Kyaa. K-Y-A-A. They say that a lot in this fanfic. "Bulma," Oolong oinked, his pigtail curling. Bigger he may be, his transformation did nothing to amplify his sexual endurance. Her slick walls coiled around him, undulating wildly, keen on milking him for all he was worth. Her body glistened with sweat, her hot tits swinging enticingly, her wet cum accepting his pig meat with an audible slurp, and her angelic lips releasing her lecherous moans of pleasure with each shove. It was just too much. No matter how desperately he tried to keep going, his hips lost their pace until he had no choice but to succumb. His head rose as he roared, pushing his dick as far as he could, rubbing against her cervix. "Coming!" he said out loud.
Wait, what?
Yeah, that's what he just wrote coming. "No," Bulma wept as she felt his seed spurt her insides once more. "You fucking pig." So close, she had been so close. She tried to keep the fire within her burning by thrashing her hips around his withering length, churning the jizz that was fired within her with positive effects, her hands kneading her sensitive jugs to generate more pleasure. Ironically, the spasming of his muscles ensured he finally had something akin to a rhythm, but when she heard a poof, she knew it was over, her efforts futile. The biggest and thickest dick to ever pierce her disappeared, replaced by the 3-inch prickle that slipped out of her as soon as it emerged. It seemed her climax would continue to elude her. Without a climax, she recovered quickly, only slightly out of breath. With some sweat coming down her glowing head, she propped herself up and eyed Oolong as he hopelessly laid spread on the floor. When his transformation was over, he'd found himself in the air, but he was unable to keep himself there for long, gravity dropping headfirst to the floor. After several climaxes and a hit to the head, he was on the verge of unconsciousness. Oolong, this was your third load and you still haven't made me come, Bulma berated him with annoyance. I swear if you don't make me come soon, I'm gonna call you a piggy again. If needed, she'd force his snout down her snatch and smear his own seeds over his stupid face until she came. In all honesty, she couldn't care less if he was conscious during the experience. We have one more paragraph left. Oolong gulped audibly at her threat, feeling the nerves flutter in his stomach. He'd once heard the phrase, "Be careful what you wish for," in school, but had never thought much of it. Perhaps, maybe just perhaps, there was truth to those words. He thought, covered in sweat, exhausted and struggling to get himself hard again. Why did Bulma have to be so demanding? Honestly, he was not made for so much strenuous effort. Not even the wonderful ogle he had of Bulma's barren body, taut and tight in all the right places, would ensure his hardness for much longer. The night was far from over, and it seemed he had his work cut out for him. Perhaps he thought with a shudder, as Bulma planted her feet at the sides of his head and began to drop her muff, the first droplets of his own cum falling on his head. He shouldn't have wished to spend the whole night with her. And that's it.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'm gonna.
Is that a medium?
Recall my medium. Yeah, I'm gonna recall my medium.
Yeah, I think mine's in comparison. I think like almost PG-13.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not. It's not.
Fair
but
enough.
It's.
To be honest with you all, this was one of the cleaner stories that I saw on the Dragon Ball Z stuff. I didn't search for too long, but there was some pretty freaky shit happening in most Dragon Ball Z erotica that I saw.
It felt a bit late for me that the character tried to put like a lesson, a morality tale at the end of this.
It's like, ooh, careful what you wish for. And I'm like, is this the lesson I'm taking from this? Really?
Yeah. After giving us a hero that condones bestiality, dragon coercion, and violent sex. But be careful what you wish for.
Is there often a lesson at the end of erotica, Paul? You know, you've heard a lot at this point.
I don't know about a lesson. There's definitely a lot of like, oh, and they looked into each other's eyes and fell asleep. And that's how most stories end. Definitely less of them sort of carry the structure of a morality tale.
So I'm bringing something new to the table today, you know?
Well, yes and no.
Fair enough.
The other trope that story definitely falls into that I see. I mean, certainly way too much in fan fiction that like really hammers home a lot of like, boy, people really sort of don't understand what sex is supposed to be like. Is that trope of like, oh, like this was non-consensual at first, but they liked it, so it's fine.
Oh yeah.
Like, so it's actually okay. And well, it's, it seems like Oolong definitely sort of regretted his decision at the end. So at least there's that.
Right. He might not ever wish for this again. And isn't that what we want, is a good, feel-good story at the end?
We feel like he learned the wrong part of the lesson, though.
Yeah.
Maybe.
I think this moral came a bit late.
Maybe a bit late, like at the very end, at the very, very end. Yeah.
But I agree with Paul on that one. There's so much stuff out there where you're like, ooh, oh no.
Yeah, it's distressingly common. Like I see it in conservatively maybe like a third, 1 in every 3 stories that I read either like start that way or tread dangerously close to that territory.
Yeah. And with this story in particular, I mean, the 18 pages before it, she like is under a spell of a magical dragon to fuck him. But there's several times in the story where she like almost snaps out of it, but then her eyes glow and she has to like, you know, from the power of the dragon, she has to fuck him again. So it does get kind of dicey many times. Yeah.
Well, I'm glad that if there were 18 pages edited out of that was part of the stuff that you edited.
Yeah. Like, I can't believe I read all 20 pages multiple times.
Oh,
so,
no.
Yeah.
Well, all right. Thank you so much for bringing that story, Tuong. We've got a bonus game to play, our first bonus game of the day. It's a game I like a lot, which is why we play it a lot. It's called A Rose by Any Other Name. How it works, I'm going to give you the title of a story that I found on fanfiction.net, and only the title. And based on that title, I'd like you to try and guess what fandom or franchise the story was written about.
That's fun.
Does that sound good?
Yep.
Alrighty. So, the first title that I have for you is Desert Rose.
Do we just say an answer?
Yeah, for sure.
Star
if you
Wars.
feel like you've got it.
Oh,
Star
damn
Wars.
it.
Nice.
Damn it. Dune. It's going to be Dune.
Dune. All right.
Those are the good deserts.
There's
You could
no
always
more
say
good deserts.
You could always say Sting.
Ooh.
Just Sting, the guy.
Just Sting.
Okay, I'm not sure even why I'm getting this, but for some reason my first thought was Terminator. Because like she drives off into the desert at the end, and I feel like there might be something between T1 and T2.
What about?
Okay.
This is a long shot though, because they took the good deserts.
So, well, all right. So we've got Terminator, we've got Dune, and we've got Star Wars.
I was also going to say Spaceballs because there's a bit where they comb the desert, and that's
true.
That's a thing. So maybe that.
That's true. Pretty excellent visual comedy.
I mean, I would have said Supernatural because 85% of all fan fiction is supernatural fan fiction.
Just one odds game. Yeah.
Yeah, I could just keep saying Supernatural every time, and there's like a probably 1 in 5 chance.
Yeah, statistically likely that'll be correct. You know what? This is a very tricky one because nobody got it, but I think I'll give a point to Maddox because because the story that you chose at least takes place on the correct planet.
Oh, okay.
Earth.
Yes, exactly. Desert Rose is an Aladdin story.
Oh, that makes sense. That is another desert.
Wow, if none of us guessed Aladdin.
And that also really shows that Paul did go and theme this around wishes, and we really should have used that. But
Oh yeah.
wow, we
Not
didn't.
wrong.
We really messed that one up.
whoops.
Well, let's sort of with Maddox sort of.
I'll take a dirty
throwing
point.
that
I
out
don't feel
there.
bad about that. That's fine.
Let's see what we think about our second title, which is An Astronaut in Sheep's Clothing.
Doctor Who?
Doctor Who.
Some sense there.
In sheep's clothing? Interstellar.
Interstellar.
Sure.
There are astronauts in that.
Uh-huh.
Okay, I think it might be The Martian, and he like counts sheep as he's trying to go to sleep, and then
I was gonna guess The Martian, but then I was like,
there's more people in Interstellar. You've got more
Matt
chances
Damon
preparing.
is also in Interstellar, and he's like the guy who betrays them, right?
Yeah.
In that movie. So I was like, maybe it's that. Anyways, it's definitely not Interstellar.
And yet no one said
Shouldn't either,
gravity. No one said gravity.
No one said gravity. No.
No.
Well, this is a tough one. I don't know if anybody's gonna get the point on this one. Lesson not learned. An astronaut in sheep's clothing is an I Dream of Jeannie story.
Oh, he's an astronaut. I just forgot that fact. Yeah, no, I figured wish. I just couldn't think of anything with astronauts and wishes.
Yeah.
We said we should think of the theme of wish for our last one, and I did not think about it for this one.
I guess Matt Damon wished to go home from Mars, I guess, was the best I could come up with.
Yeah, but I mean, I guess, if that's how you think of wishes, then literally
Anything
any
is a wish.
story,
Yeah, no.
anything that
Yeah.
has a plot.
Yeah, McConaughey wished for a better relationship with his daughter.
Yeah. True. Oh, I wasn't trying to steal a point there. I was just trying to explain why I
No.
didn't use the wish theming at all.
Well, we'll say nobody gets a point on that one, but I do have one more title for
Okay.
you.
Okay.
And that title is Escape from the Hood.
Is it Leprechaun
Leprechaun.
into
Leprechaun.
Hood?
It's got to be
Yeah.
Leprechaun.
Tuong, what do you think?
Well, I feel like I
The other
can't
two are
guess
pretty confident that
Leprechaun
it's Leprechaun.
anymore. Yeah,
Well, I
let's-
mean, yeah, if you guess Leprechaun and everybody's right, then everybody gets a
Escape
point.
from the Hood. Okay, I'm picturing a Robin Hood. Then there we go.
Ooh.
That's my guess, because I don't want to guess Leprechaun if you two guessed it. So yeah, Robin Hood.
Very honorable way to play the game. Unfortunately, you don't get the point because it is a Leprechaun.
Damn it.
The full title of this fan fiction was Leprechaun 7: Escape from the Hood.
Got it.
But I cut off that preamble there just to make it a little bit harder, even though, yeah, Maddox and Alex both immediately got it.
Do they get a split point, or they both get a point?
They both get 1 full point because they were both correct.
Damn it.
Yay.
All right.
Yay.
All right.
But so by a score of 2-1 to 0, Maddox does win that bonus game.
Huzzah.
We'll see if that factors in at the end of the episode. But now that we've played that game, it's time for another story, and this story is going to be brought to us by Alex Nursall.
Yes.
So, Alex, I know that you are a writer, but any experience with erotica or fan fiction specifically?
None. My experience with fan fiction, I've never even gotten into like reading it that much. But the thing that I've done the most is I've gone onto AO3 and I've tried to find the most upsetting tags. And then I send screenshots of the upsetting tags to my friends who do read fan fiction.
Oh boy, that sounds like a really fun game, actually.
It's honestly amazing. And one of the best ones I ever found was fellatio at terminal velocity. And the worst part was that I knew even without reading it, I understood the context because I knew the show. So I was like, oh, I already know what this will be about. I'm not going to read it because I'm going to be real upset by the end of it. But it is creative. I will give them that. But I think
What show was it?
it's a podcast called The Magnus Archives,
Okay.
which is another horror show. And yeah, there's and so like if anyone listening knows the show, then you would probably be able to guess which characters would be involved. It's like a supernatural horror show, so like but with a very, very voracious fan base. But yeah, I think of myself with this stuff like I tend to sit on the sidelines and observe, so I'm like Diane Fossey and fan fiction is the Gorillas, and then this is the Mist. But yeah, the hardest part was that I spent a lot of time sitting there going like, well, have these characters earned it? Like trying to like write it like I would write normally, and then I had to be like, no, turn that part of your brain off and just get like make it a little hornier. Stop worrying about making this make sense.
I can definitely appreciate the impulse, but you're 100% right that, yeah, that's that's not really what anybody's trying to do here.
No.
I think.
I did have fun though, but I think I don't even want to give a lead in. I just want to start and then see what happens.
Beautiful. Yeah, Alex Nursall, here you go.
Thank you. In the cold depths of space, in a galaxy far, far away, a shape came into view. Moving slowly, without haste or pressure, an orb slipped silently through the empty zones, facing no resistance. Well, it faced nothing physical that pushed back on it as it silently motored along in the void, but it knew of the resistance that it faced off against. Small, hidden, tucked away on planets far and wide, the DS-1 Death Star mobile battle station was aware that it had a job to do. It wasn't a great job, and the hours were subpar, but it was fine enough. People kept the hinges oiled and the panels clean, and occasionally they got to fire off a few rounds into oncoming targets. But it was a quiet life for the Death Star. Quiet and a little lonely, but fine. Today was different, though. There was a palpable tension in the air. He'd been shot at a few times on the way here, and the damage had left the Death Star with an itch on the closest thing to an ass the big round hunk of metal could have. It was weird for a sphere to have a butt crack, and yet here we were. At least it wouldn't cause any problems, he thought to himself. What, am I going to get an ingrown hair or something? It was during this daydream that the Death Star realized that there was another large orb coming up on the horizon. Blue and white, calm and beautiful. She was a huge planet nearly 3 times his size. She was wrapped in a thin layer of clouds and atmosphere, and she was beautiful. "You're new," she said. Her voice was soft like summer rain. Had he ever experienced summer before? Or rain? Or was that just programmed into his memory banks? He couldn't tell. For a moment, he longed for her wetness to spread across his data stores. "Yeah," said the Death Star, playing it cool. "I'm just in the area for some work thing. Are you local?" "Yes, I am the locality. I'm Alderaan. I thought you were a moon." The Death Star gave a little waggle, causing the lunches of the people inside to spill. "I'm no moon." There was an awkward pause. "How are you doing? Looks like a nice day on your surface," he stammered. "Sorry, I've never engaged in small talk before. I've only heard it from my 1.3 million personnel. They aren't much better at it either." His kyber crystals warmed, causing a light to spread across his form like an embarrassed flush. She sighed, killing 34 people in a small hurricane near the cloud-shaped walls. "Honestly, I'm just real tired." There was a tension that spread across her, causing small earthquakes to break out, damaging a restaurant in Aldera. "I'm so lonely and bored out here. I was kinda hoping you were a moon seed stick around, but alas." Deep in his computer bowels, a series of lights clicked on. Fingers touched buttons and ran cool skin against hard plastic. Something stirred deep in him that he never felt before. Recognition, desire, need. A heat that spread outwards into the very material that made him. "I'm sorry to hear that," he said calmly. "Is there anything I can do to help?" He could feel her gaze on him, cloudy eyes heavily lidded but ravenous, like a Jawa eyeing your bag. "Can I be forward?" she inquired. "I've never been forward before. I've never been anything." He could feel his passages become dry with nervousness, but he pressed on, needing more, craving it, feeling her gravity beginning to pull him in. "Tell me." She sighed, and he could see a plume of smoke seep away from the surface of Alderaan, dissipating in the air. "I didn't know you smoked," he said nonchalantly, trying to steer the conversation away from the stirring in his lower sectors. Tunnels that had previously been welded shut began to clang open, steamy heat from the boilers pouring out, leaving the walls of his body wet and dripping, and the bodies of the workers nearby blistered and painful from excruciating steam burns. He paid them no mind, though. "Have you ever felt release?" she inquired. "Have you ever just exploded all over someone, raining down on them in hot rivulets, poured thick down them like lava into water, hard and soft at once?" The Death Star was taken aback by such forwardness. He was a huge murder weapon, and she was talking about... what, exactly? He'd seen humans fuck before, but it seemed so fleshy and weird, and their bodies so small and pointless. One time, he dropped a ceiling panel on one just to crush it to see what happens. It was messy but unappealing. But maybe this could be different. "I wish to get out of here, see the universe, feel new heat on my form from stars I can only gaze upon in the distance," Alderaan sighed. "But how could I ever escape the pull of the sun? This isn't the kind of warmth I long for." His kyber crystals, once only meant to power weapons, heated up unbidden at the thought of pushing deep into her earthy body, mud and grass and sand being crushed into every crevice on his surface, lapping at her with metallic desire. She continued, dropping all pretense, her waves crashing against the rocky cliffs of her copious, sensuous continents. "I want to come so hard I no longer exist. I want to be one with the universe." She sighed deeply. "I wish to be free." "I could set you free," the Death Star said, panting. Was this desire he felt? He could feel the heat beginning to build in his hypermatter annihilation reactor. The dolomite that shielded his inferno warmed, like lava splashing around Congo the Disemboweler, a character that I think is no longer canon but has a sick-as-fuck name. "Touch me," she whispered huskily. "I have felt the fingers of a million hands, but I have never felt the love of a planet-sized orb." Several panels in the Death Star moved around as if it was trying to shrug, which is hard to do when you're a sphere. I can't get any closer. Not like this. Not with my bosses watching." The clouds pulled back. He could see everything, the wetness that spread across her form gushing forward. Oh, how he longed to roll through the soft valley and cragged peaks of her body, to taste the salty brine of her oceanic womanhood, to crush the tiny figures that dotted her mountain ranges with his bulk, filling her with his plasma seed. Please, she panted, do what you must. Do what you must. I have waited eons for release. I cannot hold it in much longer. I have heard tiny voices on my rump speak of something called NFTs, and I cannot bear having to hear any more about them. I can't, he said, barely able to hold back. Do it. His turgid beam flared out across space, cleaving into her. Yes, finally, she screamed as the super laser ran the length of her mass, prying her open like ravishing fingers of light, tearing away at the earth that covered her as if it was nothing more than wet tissue paper. She heaved, euphoric, just as fissures spread out across her surface. As she exploded, it was like a million voices cried out in orgasm and then were suddenly silenced. Singed bits of limb bounced off the Death Star as he could feel the post-laser refractory period start to cause his metal to soften. As bits of charred Alderaanians floated around him, the Death Star thought on his current situation. Was this how humans viewed sex? Was this what it was like for them? Is this what it meant to blow a pussy up? The Death Star stared out into space and began a slow float towards the next system, and the next, but always dreaming of the first, Alderaan.
Wow.
Oh my god. This is your first fanfic, Veronica?
I was not expecting Death Star and Alderaan fanfiction. I definitely wasn't expecting it to be the more healthy relationship we've heard so far today.
I thought this would be fun. This was an idea. I was sort of bouncing ideas off my husband, and then then this came up, and we were like, "This is perfect." And so I had so much fun writing this.
That was incredible.
That was glorious.
Thank you.
Another entry in a long and proud tradition of stories of inanimate objects.
Well, it definitely changes the feel of the moment in A New Hope when like Leia's watching the planet explode, and you're like, Leia, if you only knew.
Yeah, good for her.
Yeah,
good for Alderaan.
I don't know if I can watch that movie the same way anymore.
Excellent. That's what I was trying to do.
Oh my gosh. I cannot thank you enough. That was so good.
Thank you.
Oh, beautiful. I think the best thing we could do right now is to move on to our second bonus game. Whew. This game is going to help us all flex our creative muscles a little bit more. This is my favorite game. It's called Fill That Gap. How it works, I'm going to read the beginning of an excerpt from a story that, again, I found on fanfiction.net, and I'd like you all to take a crack at completing the excerpt. So the missing portion could be like a few words long. It might be like an entire sentence. Whatever direction you think it's going to go in, I'll arbitrarily decide whoever is, I guess, closest to what it actually is, and that person will get a point. Does that sound good?
Yeah, sounds great.
Sounds good.
Yeah, let's do it.
Alrighty. Our first excerpt begins. Did size matter? Not entirely. To Wanda, it wasn't about how big a guy was. It wasn't about having the shape of a bodybuilder. Wanda never cared much about all that. A man may stimulate your body, but can he stimulate your heart and mind too? Cosmos certainly has. And that, blank. So where do we think that goes?
Oh, I think I got thrown off. I thought Wanda from like WandaVision and then Cosmos.
This is definitely Fairly Odd Parents.
It's Fairly
right
Odd Parents.
Oh, okay.
It is How I Met Your Mother. That's my end to that.
Can I get just the lead in again, Paul?
Yeah. A man may stimulate your body, but can he stimulate your heart and mind too? Cosmos certainly has. And that
was before he teleported inside of her. Like, I think it's like a journey inside the body type thing.
And that is why he'd ordered an assortment of wands from Wish.com.
Oh.
Oh, that's good.
I'm going with the theme poorly.
Oh, right. The theme. God
I think
dang
we're on
it.
theme that they're fairly odd parents to start
Yeah.
with.
Yeah.
We already figured out where it was. Great. Well, the actual finish of the excerpt. A man may stimulate your body, but can he stimulate your heart and mind too? Cosmo certainly has, and that made him sexier than any other man in fairy world.
Oh, of course.
Okay.
Of course.
Oh, I just keep picturing their little like angular heads and just being and their weird little voices, and I'm like, oh no.
Yeah, I chose a less graphic excerpt from this particular story. This story, it's called Two Shall Become One by the writer Trice Tokushu. And I thought it was pretty good. So definitely everybody should go look that up. Who's going to get a point on this one, more importantly? I think Maddox's was too gross.
Aw. I mean, I didn't do anything close to the right answer, so I'm just, don't call me
Fair
gross.
Fair enough. Tongue, remind me what your guess was?
I mine doesn't even make much sense, but anytime I hear "and that," I just have to fill it in with "is how I met your mother," because
Right.
So I don't think I'm close either.
You know what? Yeah, I'll give the point to Alex here. 'Cause I
Hooray.
think, yeah, Alex suggested something that he might have done that was nice and would stimulate the heart and mind.
Mhm.
A thoughtful gift. So we'll give a point to Alex for that one. I have a second excerpt for you, and Tongue, I think you're going to like this one.
There's pigs in it, isn't there?
He ran his hands down Vegeta's small form
No.
to the place of pressure, so to speak. Vegeta reacted severely at his touch there. Ah, I see blank.
Oh.
I see you've never had a man go Super Saiyan inside of you
Damn it.
before.
I was just I was gonna say something like that. Oh no. I see you are over 9,000 as well.
Oh, that's good. I like that. Was it I see you never or I see you?
It's I see.
I see. You're ready for Piccolo to give you a pickle blow.
Ha!
Nice.
Wow. Maddox is gonna get the point on this one.
Yes.
He's too gross for the first one.
Well-
Just gross enough for the second one.
His answer is much cleverer than the real thing, but in terms of accuracy, I think he's going to get it. The full excerpt reads, he ran his hands down Vegeta's small form to the place of pressure, so to speak. Vegeta reacted severely at his touch there. Ah, I see you have another weak spot, whispered Piccolo with a deep, husky voice.
Oh, Piccolo's involved. I got it.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, and that is from the story How Vegeta Became Super Saiyan 3.
Oh no.
Oh no.
Yeah, so, expanding the lore, which is what all good fanfiction should do.
Agreed. Agreed.
Answer the unanswered questions.
Exactly, yeah. Fill it in with your own theories. I've got one more excerpt for you. Ariel used her fingers to gingerly touch him, looking at his member from every angle. Eric growled at the back of his throat as she used a finger to tap at the tip, where a clear, sticky liquid was beginning to form. Then she brought a finger up to her succulent lips as she tasted him. It was blank.
I want to say salty, but it seems like she would be used to more salt
Yeah.
from the sea.
Right? That's
Yeah.
all she is exposed to.
It was
But
tangy.
also writers make mistakes, so
Yeah. It was tangy, like a fresh jellyfish.
oh, that's good.
Right.
That's good. Maddox, do you want to plant your flag in?
I'll maybe add a little,
salty.
like salty like sea brine. Maybe I'll add a couple words on there to flesh it out. But yeah, I think
Okay.
salty is still the way I'm going with this.
We've got tangy, we've got salty. Tongue,
Yeah.
are you going to spring for a different flavor? or-
Yeah, as usual, I'll just have to go off the wall here. It was it was tentacly. like Ursula
Okay, going
and
texture.
her legs.
I was hoping.
Yeah.
I was hoping for umami.
The most sexy flavor.
Yummy.
The full excerpt reads, Ariel used her fingers to gingerly touch him, looking at his member from every angle. Eric growled at the back of his throat as she used a finger to tap at the tip where a clear, sticky liquid was beginning to form. Then she brought a finger up to her succulent lips as she tasted him. It was a bit sour, but she'd had worse. Yeah.
Technically, it's not a taste, I guess.
No,
not canon.
So basically, I'm thinking probably. Yeah, does Alex get the point on this one? Tangy feels closer to sour.
Tangy is close to sour. Yeah, it's like
Tangy
citrus.
is close.
Yeah,
Tangy is a late sour.
We'll say by a score of 2-1 to 0, Alex wins this bonus game.
Woo!
All right, so we've got our bonus games. We've had a couple of stories, but we do have one more story to hear before we declare a winner. And that story is going to be read to us by Maddox Campbell. So Maddox, you've been on the show a couple times before. I think you won it once.
I think so, yeah.
The last time you were on.
I don't think it was last time. Or maybe I have won it before, at least at the live show. I know for sure once because I got to come back.
Fair enough. Yeah. What have you brought for us today?
Yes. So what I brought today is I probably have to tell you guys the fandom before we get started. So because it's a little bit deeper cut, it is specifically the movie based on the Stephen King novel of Needful Things.
Oh,
okay,
man.
all right.
Which I have
deep cut.
Titled Pleadful Things.
Very good. Very good.
And I guess I'll just take it away then. A chill gust blew through the ever-November town of Castle Rock, Maine. A town that was small, close-knit, and quiet. Nothing new ever happened in Castle Rock. Not until the day a new shop came to town. A shop called Needful Things. The new shop had been subject of much rumor and innuendo around town. What exactly would it sell? And who had opened this enigmatic boutique? The letter question was answered a week ago when a jet-black 1958 Mercedes-Benz had driven into town. The large car had shuddered to a stop in front of Needful Things, and out had stepped Leland Gaunt. Leland was tall and lean, in an immaculately tailored black suit. He wore a stylish black hat, and a dignified gray mustache sat on invitingly on his upper lip. A group of gawkers had gathered around him. He raised his long fingers and long-nailed hands in a pleading manner, and assured all those presents that all their questions, and indeed their deepest, darkest, dirtiest shopping desires, would be satisfied in 1 week at the grand opening. That day was today. Despite the excitement, the townsfolk were too anxious of change to rush the store with business. They were taking turns, venturing into the shop one at a time. Polly had watched from the cafe across the street as little Brian Rusk had entered and exited holding a baseball card like it was the Holy Grail. And Nettie Cobb had gone in next and exited with a small figurine held against her breast like a beloved babe. Finally, it was Polly's turn. So she took her break and crossed the street to see what need she could have filled. The shop was cozy. The air was warm even though the fireplace was dark. The wooden floorboards were well worn and gave an inviting creak as she perused the kitsch on the shelves. It surprised her when she didn't hear the purveyor approach her from behind and gently whisper in her ear. "What do you desire?" Leland Gaunt was so close his hot breath tickled her ear. "Just looking," she spouted reflexively with a start. Her heart was pounding fast. "We're all looking for something," said Leland, his eyes rolling over her from top to toes and back. His voice was soft and smooth like a blanket, fresh out of the dryer, but his eyes were intense like an X-ray. Polly turned away shyly, then she had a thought that caused her to turn back. She knew what she wanted, but was too embarrassed to speak it out loud. "Speak, young miss. There's no need to keep secrets from me. Everything spoken here is kept in strict confidence." "Like a priest?" she asked. "Nothing like a priest," he scoffed. "I'd never tattle on you to God." "It's just my fiancé," she started shyly. "He's sweet and I love him, but he looks like Ed Harris. And ever since I saw Glenn Ross, well, Ed Harris, he's a real jerk in that, you know. Well, Alan, my fancy's name is Alan, by the way. He just doesn't arouse me anymore. I need release. Leland finished for her. I have just the item. He pulled a dark oak box out from beneath the display case. Polly wondered what might be inside. A large thermos? A small lamp? Small town living had left her without much imagination and no preparation for the enormous device revealed when Leland pulled back the lid. The dildo was long and thick. It was as hard as stone, but warm to the touch, as though it held an inner fire. It was black, with glowing flecks of iridescent red snaking the shaft like veins. It was so dark and smooth, she could see her own reflection drooling over a phallus that she hadn't had the ability to dream of. How much? That look of excitement is down payment enough, he smiled. Polly took the box and rushed out of the store with her prize. She had already shared more of her private thoughts with this stranger than she had with anyone, ever. That night, as she was alone in her bedroom, Polly eyed the box that she had placed on her nightstand. Alan would be working late, so she had the night to herself. If ever there was a time, it was now. She grabbed the dildo. She expected to need 2 hands from its size and weight, but she felt strong with it in her hand, and one would suffice. She slid her panties off from beneath her silk nightdress and sprawled herself open on the soft bed. She teased herself at first, moving around the edges, nervous despite herself. Suddenly, the device came alive. It had no switch, no place for batteries, but still it vibrated and pulsated with the rhythm of her delight. She arched her back and felt something long and thin tickle her clit. But she didn't know what part of the dildo was doing it, but she no longer cared. Finally, she plunged the full length within herself. It filled something she hadn't known was empty. In and out, her breathing grew faster. She began to scream in ecstasy. But just as she was reaching her climax, the dildo began to struggle against her. It twisted and writhed backwards despite her using her full strength to keep it within. Polly lost grip, and the dildo shot out of her vagina like a cannonball, landing with a heavy thud on the hardwood floor across the room. The dildo erupted a white substance. It wasn't cum. It was more like spider webs that moved and stretched on their own. The strands reached to floor, to ceiling, and began to weave themselves into a solid shape. Finally, the strands hardened into the shape of a white door. Polly heard a gentle knock from the other side. Too surprised and horned up to think straight, Polly rose from her bed and answered the door. There stood all 6 feet 4 inches of Leland Gaunt in a bright red silk robe. The trial is over. Time to settle up. He winked. From the floor, the dildo sprouted spider-like legs and skittered across and up Leland's leg and slid back into its home. The dildo had been Leland's penis all along. Leland moved to Polly and relieved her of her nightdress. His long nails ran down her back, making her body shiver in pleasure. His nails scraped against her soul, scouring away her inhibitions. As they moved together in the bed, she whispered close into his ear, like he had in the shop, the question that had started this whole journey. How much? He stopped suddenly, now completely businesslike. 4 easy payments of $49.95. The end. I'm not sure I stuck the landing there, but
I loved it.
That had some truly terrifying and wonderful, but also mostly terrifying visuals.
Yeah, the imagery of, I don't know how to describe it.
Yeah.
Spider penis.
Yeah, that's right. It's not.
That's what I was saying when Paul was
Spider-Man.
asking earlier, like how is it? Like 90% just sort of erotica, like setting a mood. But then there's a spider penis at the end that shoots web cum. So
Yes,
Yeah.
a spider penis that comes a door.
Yeah. Hang
it's
on,
hard-
I'm making a note for season 3 of my podcast, excuse me.
I like how you had to specify that it was the movie version so that you could fit in that Ed Harris.
Felt like it was
but,
important.
but also so that you could lay in for anybody who has seen the movie that Leland Gott is played by Max von Sydow with a mustache.
Just really helped me build the moment, I think, to visualize it
Yeah,
myself.
it helps you visualize
Yeah.
it for sure. Whew, boy, that was great. Thank you.
I've never seen the movie, but I visualized it pretty good.
Okay.
I would say, so.
Yeah, I haven't seen the movie, but I have watched the Rick and Morty episode that plays off of this. So
I was gonna say that's what
Oh,
I
there you
watched.
go.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was my point of reference.
Yeah.
Basically the same. Yeah, no, that gets the vibe pretty well.
The movie has a lot less domestic terrorism than the book has. So it's
Less, not
It's-
none, less.
not none, less, but certainly less. Great. Well, that's all of our stories for today, and we've played our bonus games. So now what remains is for us to all go around and choose a winner. So we're going to go in order. Yeah, we're going to go in order of who read today. So first we'll go to Tuong. Who do you think should be named today's champion?
Listen, I loved everyone's stories. I think they were much better than what I brought to the table today. But if I had to choose one, it'd be two planets fucking, I think. So I give it to Alex.
I mean, one planet, one space station.
Well,
but
that's,
I
I'm sorry. You're right. For being technical here.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm doing better with the canon than Disney is, so whatever.
You should write the next movie.
Exactly.
A featured role for Congo the Disemboweler.
Yes, bring him back, make him canonical again.
It's what the fans want.
Exactly.
Perfect. Alex, who do you think should be named today's winner?
Oh, this is really fun, but I think there's just I can't stop thinking about the penis skittering across the ground. So I'm gonna have to give this one to Maddox because that visual is going to stick with me now.
I'm
Like a
glad.
spider.
Yeah, it's making little like ticky tacky noises.
Oh gosh, yeah.
Yeah.
Against the hardwood floor.
Yeah, two things I love is inanimate objects falling in love and callous disregard for human life. So Alex's story was great for me. Yeah, I'm voting for Alex's story. Yeah.
Great. And as for me, I think I'll agree with Alex that most striking image has to go to Maddox with the spider penis, but I think definitely my vote as a whole has to go to Alex's story. I mean, like the references, the flowery way of really romanticizing the death of billions.
You changed how I look at Star Wars. That's incredible. That's
Yeah.
This is how Palpatine came back.
Well,
yeah.
That's why they couldn't show it on
that's-
screen.
That's at least some explanation, because all we got in episode 9 was literally somehow Palpatine has returned.
Yeah.
Like, oh, fuck off. Oh, great. Well, with all that said, all of our votes casted. I mean, the bonus games didn't really come into it, but that's fine because it, I think, is a decisive victory today for Alex Nursall.
Woo! Yay,
Yeah.
thank you
Congratulations.
guys. All right.
Beautiful. So, before we all say goodbye, let's go around and talk about what we've been working on. It's the plugs section of the show. Hey, Tuong.
Yeah, I'd like to plug Star Wars as a franchise. No. I'd like to plug the Podcavern, www.podcavern.com. It's a podcast network that I run that has a bunch of wonderful shows, including this one.
Including this one.
And more to come. And yeah, lots of new exciting things this year. So keep your eye out on that.
Beautiful. How about you, Maddox?
Yeah, so if you like D&D podcasts, I've got my old podcast, Caverns Comedians. If you like magic wishes, like this episode, I've got my podcast, Break a Wish. And if I have any other future projects, they'll be on kicksandgigglesentertainment.com.
Beautiful. And Alex, how about yourself?
If you like horror fiction podcasts, as was mentioned at the top of the show, I am the co-creator and co-writer, and I also act in the show Parkdale Haunt. And we'll be having our third season come out in, I'm going to say late September, early October this year. And if you want to check out the show, it's on all podcast apps, or you can go to parkdalehaunt.com and check it out.
As for myself, you're already listening to The Pen is Mightier. And this show, as Tuong mentioned, is part of the Podcavern network. So you can follow this show here on Facebook. That's where we do all of our promotion, all of our news. You can vote on things that we're going to be doing later in the season. And definitely follow the Podcavern on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter for excellent shows like Love Is, Ranked, Disney Dummies, and Heroes Don't Do Paperwork, among a whole bunch of other ones. So, all I have left to do today is thank all of my participants for joining. We had Tuong Law, we had Maddox Campbell, and we had our winner and champion, Alex Nursall.
Woo!
Yeah.
Thank you so much, the three of you. I'm so happy that you could all join me today. I had so much fun.
Yeah, I had a great time.
Yeah.
I if I ever get invited back, I'm gonna write my next one. I feel like now that I've heard everyone else's like creative juices going, I'm like, I can write 2 inanimate objects fucking, I think.
I mean,
I have that in me.
That's how it happens. Like, I didn't write fan fiction until I met Paul, and then I started doing the show, and they're like, okay, well, now everyone else is writing it, and I gotta bring my writing abilities to this strange, awkward thing.
After this episode is over, I'm going to write one. Even though I know it's going to be a while to the next episode, I'm just going to write one for fun.
I am blessed to know so many talented people, and 3 of them joined me today. So thanks again to all of our participants. Thank you so much for listening. Congratulations again to our winner, Alex Nursall, and we'll see you all again next time for another edition of The Pen is Mightier. Stay safe, wear a mask, get your booster. We love you. Goodbye.
Rock music starts to play.